Hello and welcome to this episode of Ranked Ramble. This one, it's all about Commander, which is ironic because we have Explorer playing in the background here. There's some very long matches here. We had some good matches. We had a Rakdos match. We also had a mono blue player that quit out in the middle that I put in for fun because, you know, you can't play a tempo aggro deck and not have someone quit. Yeah, it's really annoying. And then we'll be closing out with a green-black rock match, so stick around if you'd like to enjoy that. As for this one, this was, well, I'd like to preface this by saying that first of all, I love Commander. It's one of my favourite formats. I would probably say it is probably at the current moment my second favourite. I love Pioneer and Explorer a little bit more. I have to be in a certain mood to play Commander. That's because my experience with Commander is split between the MTGO and in paper. They kind of balance each other out. But as I said, I do love Commander, but this was what I wanted to ask is, are Commander players really a viable market to build around? And I wanted to ask that question for both LGSs and Wizards in general. This question was really inspired because, as I said last week, my LGS store sadly closed down. Rest in peace, Asgard Games. Really did love you guys there, everyone was awesome. And it's kind of led to this split now where some people are migrating to a store one direction and some are going to another. I'm kind of out in the middle of sticks, so it's really hard for me to get anywhere. And I kind of thought about, like, you know, what happened to the Magic community there. When I started going there 2 years ago, we had a thriving modern community that was really good and really fun. And then we just migrated to a Commander community that played, and then the store's closed now. So while I'm sure there is many other factors involved, I kind of led to the question of, was it good to build around the EDH players as the main market for Magic? Because that's kind of what Wizards are doing now, and we all know it. Everything is legendary. Every archetype is being filled. There's a random legendary that cares about a mechanic that's not even in the set just to build a new kind of archetype for Commander players. So, first point I wanted to address in this regard would be, what's the benefits for the LGS of a Commander focused system? Well, it's low effort. You just have to take the money and send them off to a table. But it's also a low investment. Obviously, once they've bought their initial precon or their deck that they want to play, what real change is there? I mean, best example I would give is one of my close friends. He has a Rune Blink deck, a mono blue Blind Seer crazy deck, and his third deck is a Shurikai Miracle Engine deck. And I think over the 2 years that I've known him, or since he's had those decks played at the store, he's maybe upgraded like 4 or 5 cards. Yeah, his trade binder has been the same for years because he only plays Commander. Nothing wrong with that, it's how he loves to do it. But from an LGS perspective, I mean, he didn't play pre-releases, he didn't do drafts, he just came, gave a small bit of money and then sat at the back and played Commander with us. That doesn't seem like a viable long-term option. And one of the other things I wanted to address with the closing of the LGS store is we've even had a group of players who've now pretty much admitted that they're just going to play at people's houses. They're not even going to go to LGSs anymore. So that kind of brings me into the other side of that, and let's ask, you know, is it a sustainable market to build around for Wizards? Well, pretty much. I mean, all they have to do is drop certain bombs. Like, unironically, back in the day they did it by accident. Like, they printed Smothering Tithe, which turned out to be the must-play Commander when it took off. But now they're very clearly trying to recreate that. They're making cards which are very clearly designed to be built around for a janky Commander deck, like Arietta the Charmed Apple. Her ability literally states, opponents can't attack you. Enchanted creatures can't attack you. Opponent's control can't attack you. Now obviously that makes sense because Commander is the most popular format, and yes, there was a slight rolls thing built around it, but that hasn't produced a standard rolls deck with Arietta, unless it has since I recorded this. But no one's playing that because everyone's using her as a new commander, and she's the most popular commander from the set. You know, and that's fine. There's always going to be the commander plans in there for Wizards. What I'm concerned about from a long-term perspective from Wizards design is Ariete is probably the best example now of a enchantment or a commander. So what's their option next time? They've got to add more colors, make her cheaper to cast, give her an ability that does double damage. It's kind of an escalation issue. Best example of this I would say is in terms of tribal. They have made the Precon green-black elf commander that has just eclipsed every other elf commander. What's his name? He was everywhere for a while, but I've forgotten his name now. I'm sure someone can remind me in the comments. But now, any other elf legendary is just going to go in that deck, because he's going to be the commander for that deck forever. Same with Najeela. There will never be a tribal warrior commander again, because why would you not play Najeela? She is like the pinnacle of card design, and as we get more and more powerful commanders, we will escalate towards more and more stuff like that. But as I said, this is the way Wizards are pushing it, and it is the most popular format for a reason. And it seems to be the format that a lot of new players are being introduced to. For example, people are just saying, here, use this precon, now play with us, or here, use my simple deck and we can play together. As an introductory product, Commander I think could go left or right. I mean, it could go left off a cliff or right into like a beautiful forest. And what I mean by that analogy is, let's say that you come in with a precon that your friends are letting you to play, and you sit down, your opponent's like, oh cool, I'm playing like Blind Seer with 16 different abilities you've never heard of before, and I know it's your first game of Magic, but you've got to learn all of these to see how they interact. That could be a bit off-putting. That's a blank scenario though, because I do believe that in a scenario like that, if someone comes with like a, hey, I'm first time playing Magic, everyone will switch to an easy to understand deck. But the issue is, as we discussed previously with the standard to pioneer issue in last week's episode, players are not migrating from Commander. And I think that might be down to its casual nature. You know, and it might sound crazy, but in our competitive card game, people are wanting to play the casual game where it doesn't matter, you know. They're like, I got to cast my commander with this card that I wanted to try with my commander, so I've achieved my life goal now, and I don't have to worry about the rest of the game. It also means that obviously then when you transfer to, let's say, standard, and they go, okay, well, it's turn 3 and I'm getting killed by, well, no, it's turn 3, sorry. It's turn 3 and our opponent already has 2 fast creatures and insurmountable advantage, and there's no one else to ask for help. What do I do? It's a very jarring disposition that I don't think a lot of players want to make. That said, I do think it's a great way to introduce people. The social aspect's really fun if it's a very negotiation heavy, like a bro, let me off for one turn and I'll get rid of that, or like, mate, give me second and I'll help you win. But I think that I ultimately think that the biggest strike against Commander is there is no progression. For example, you pick up your, let's say you 10 years ago wanted to play Magic and you pick up an intro deck and you go to play Standard and you play it, you get wiped because your deck's terrible. But someone says, hey, do you want to make a cheap mono red deck? Here's a list. You build that for fun, you come and play. Again, you do pretty well. You then can go, oh, I'll try the Friday Night Magic tournament for fun. Progress into that. Your standard deck rotates, then you go, oh, well, what's the Eternal format you guys are playing? What's this modern? I'll try this modern, you know? And then what, and so on and so forth. Commander doesn't have that progression. Commander just has, you have a deck you like, you can play it whenever you want. And that's a great, attractive feature for the format. But from a long-term business perspective, that's not great. If you're producing a massive set and all your vendors are having to buy tons of packs to crack to find the 2 or 3 things that the Commander players are like biting your hand off for. It's a dangerous scenario to be in. And like I said, there's no progression. For example, you could say, well, what about the progression to CEDH? I mean, if you broach a Commander player with the notion of CEDH, they like shun you. They're like, why would I want to play a competitive format? Why would I want to play a game that ends in like 2 or 3 turns? I don't know, because I want to play more than 2 games of Magic the entire night. But I think the biggest personal strike I want to give against Commander for LGSs in particular, why I think it's not the greatest format to build around long term. It's a great format, it's fun, should exist, not saying to get rid of it. It doesn't foster a community, it fosters cells. And I know cells might sound weird, but for example, it's no longer, for example, when you go to play Modern or Standard at an LGS, it's okay, I've got my first round opponent, I'll play, oh, it's Steve, I play Steve every week, I love you Steve, man, how are you doing? Let's have a good game. Whatever the result is, you move to round 2, it's like, oh, it's this guy just started coming a few weeks ago, who's this? Hey, I'm Ultracol, who are you? Oh, I'm Luke. Hi, Luke. That doesn't happen as often in Commander. One of the reasons for that is the nature of Commander. People will migrate to their playgroups. It's like, hey, I want to play with these guys that I play with every week. And that's cool, that's totally fine. Issue then is, well, if you guys are just going to play that group and you're not going to let the new players in, where are they going to go? Oh, well, they need to bring their own group of 3 other players to play. It's very hard to slot in if you're new to Commander. Like, for example, I'm recording this on a Friday afternoon, umming and ahhing whether I want to try a different game store because the other guys that I was going to go with are busy this night, and the thought of just being the odd person out and not being able to slot into a game is really awkward. Because, well, what if I get there and they've already started? I've got to sit around for 2 hours and wait for the next Commander game to start? And people might say, in response to that, well, we just shuffle our pods at our Commander game. Well, you can't really do that because there's no set finish for a Commander game. You could get comboed out of nowhere in an hour, or you could have a 3-hour multi-bounce, multi-board wipe, resetting grind fest that goes on forever. But yeah, I'm being very negative here and I don't want to be. I love Commander. I think it's a fantastic format. I think it provides some great creativity, like you've seen some of the janky ass stuff I've done with Niv-Mizzet. I think it's great, but I don't think we should forsake every other format for the sake of Commander. And ultimately, I don't see Commander having a long-term future for the LGSs. For example, like I said, it doesn't really foster a community, because now what's happened is, with my LGS here, with it closing down, 2 groups, 1 group of the players, there was like 3 or 4 groups. The pre-existing Modern players have decided to go to this one store that fosters a very competitive environment. They reserve Friday Night Magic for Modern, Standard, Pioneer and Legacy. And, you know, I'm very tempted to go there sometimes for fun. A couple of others, like another group, they've decided to go to another game store that just fosters casual, pay a fee and play all night. Well, play Commander. But another group, which was the set group that nobody really interacted with, and I don't even know all of their names if I'm honest. I think I only spoke to them like twice to trade. They've decided and they've announced that they're not coming anywhere because they're going to play at someone's house, which is fair play to them. They want to do that, and they can do that every Friday. It's cool. But it is ultimately kind of depressing from a perspective that, you know, we didn't build essentially a community. We built a bunch of little cells of people that have all split up now. And yes, I'm sure that must happen with every LGS, but I kind of would feel that Commander kind of segregated, ironically. The multiplayer game kind of segregated the LGS community. Now that might be an exception to the rule, and maybe there's some really clever way of, like, maybe a chess clock system, which would be horrendous to play Magic under, that I don't know about. But yeah, I don't know. And ultimately, as I've said before, and it's going to be a discussion point quickly here, but I'll do a big discussion on it later. Commander is a terrible online format for a magnitude of reasons that I will go into in another point. In fact, that will probably be the next talking point here. I don't want to spend every week talking about Commander, but obviously with the wounds of losing an LGS here, I was pretty fresh-faced and wanted to just stick this in and discuss obviously everything going on with it. Again, it's truthfully, I'm not calling for a ban on Commander or change to the system. It's just a thought exercise. I want to know, how does your LGS deal with the issues surrounding Commander? You know, do you think that it built a solid community? Maybe I'm totally off my books here and someone just goes, no, it actually built a great community. We have this system where you play in one pod and then you have to move and shuffle and play and wait till the next pod to finish and move on. And we know everyone, we play all the time. Maybe I'm off because I don't have that experience of running LGSs where someone goes, actually Commander's the most profitable format because everyone buys the precons every release. That's a true factor I didn't consider. But yes, ultimately it is a very fun, very interesting little game here. I am truthfully glad that we got to move on with that. And yeah, for the rest of this, I'm gonna just move into the discussing the gameplay that is currently on the screen. I hope you don't mind. Let me know what you think about whether or not you think Commander is good for long-term building in Magic.